Before this gamepad inevitably gets taken off the market, I wanted to review it or at least pick it up and add it to my collection. Allow me to explain. This is the licensed Xbox Series controller from Microsoft indeed. That's the wrong controller. That was Cyberpunk, but this is the Starfield limited edition Xbox Series controller from Microsoft, a real beauty that I've reviewed on the channel, or at least showcased. This isn't really a review-worthy controller because it's just a stalker, other than the cosmetic or appearance modifications. But Iine over here does not have the official licensing rights for Starfield, Xbox games, or any such licensing or rights that would allow them to create a Starfield themed controller. And I had never heard of Iine, despite the fact I've been in the controller game for over 2 decades and real deep in it for about 6 years, reviewing them heavily on the channel. But my first introduction to them was finding out that their latest and greatest gamepad had a huge price discrepancy, being almost triple the price on the manufacturer's website versus being sold for pennies on the dollar on Amazon. But as I scrolled down with my mouse wheel on Amazon, aka Jeff Bezos' shack, I came across this little beauty, and as soon as I saw that this box did not have that lime green stamp and sigil saying that this was an authorized Xbox controller, but it was Xbox game themed, I wanted to compare it next to the authentic joint, because just from the picture you can tell that the quality is nowhere near the official license joint. If you are a collector, this will inevitably become a rare gamepad because it's a counterfeit Starfield design. I don't know why I did air quotes, that literally is what it is. Let's check it out.
This is your controller captain. We've reached 6,900 feet. Go ahead and start flicking the sticks and mollywopping the back paddles.
You don't like back paddles? How about those rear buttons? We've tested almost 100 custom and premium controllers, and we're only at the beginning. You need a thumbstick guide or tutorial on how to overclock your controller? Check out the controller playlist.
Bing bong.
Controller captain out.
As for the packaging included accessories, if you wanted to pause the box to read some of the key features, a little pinch and zoom action, you may do so now. Some of the notable things about this thing is platform support is going to be Nintendo Switch and PC. And the main notable feature, in my personal opinion, would be the fact that this has magnetic Hall effect thumbsticks, which are virtually stick drift proof. That's really all this gamepad has going for it. That and the fact that it is an unauthorized Starfield design. So as the big meat collector I am, I did opt an extra $10 for the Starfield theme carrying case, and I am so glad that I did. So you can't click down the thumbsticks, which means this provides a lot more protection than most clamshell cases, like what you see with the Elite Series controllers. And also, it kind of looks good, I'm not gonna lie. It does look a little bit toyish with the red zipper and then this highly reflective logo in the center, but it doesn't look terrible. Let's see what the controller looks like. Okay, you actually get a little presentation here, a little Velcro strap, a seat belt basically holding your controller in place. Damn, a little suede Alcantara velvet in here. Love that. What's up here? Gross. A little 1-foot rubber USB-C cable, not microfiber or braided, no dust covers, no rubber tie back, just a little snip and throw, and is the same design cable with that interesting pattern etched on the USB A and C end that I encountered with this controller review from a couple of days ago. Get these little slip over universal thumbstick caps, which are of course Starfield themed. Speaking of which, drop in the comment section below, is anyone still playing Starfield? I had a great time with it during my first playthrough, and then immediately took the honeymoon goggles off and started seeing all the pitfalls and flaws, which I saw from day one, but just became more evident as I played the game more and more. But a little Bethesda title is getting a showcase on the channel in the near future, and it ain't Starfield, and it's none of the Elder Scrolls games. Little hint for you there. You can kind of deduce what's coming in the future. You're going to be coming in the future when you watch the video. The first chunk of pages is Egyptian hieroglyphics, but you skip about halfway in there, you get the English. This thing is super tiny. The font and the actual pamphlet itself is really small. Okay, yeah, this isn't terrible. Shows you all the connection modes. And this is pretty easy to miss. It was buried in this net down here. This is going to be your 2.4 gigahertz dongle or receiver. A little bit of Chinese characters on this side, and then you have some lines which make it easier to grab and pull. No dust cover though. Removing these foam protectors around the thumbsticks or analog sticks, we can start talking about what is the most important thing of this controller, and that is going to be the cosmetics. So as you can see, this takes a totally different approach from the licensed Xbox variant, which has light gray thumbstick caps but red bases, which I personally think looks phenomenal. So the main thing that strikes me here, which I'm going to have to switch to a different lens to show you, is going to be the plastics. Not only appearance but also feel. They do feel and look a lot cheaper on the Iine over here, and the font or lettering on the face or action buttons does look incredibly cheap as opposed to the licensed Microsoft Johns, which by the way, you can buy these on Amazon in a variety of colors and install them on a stock gamepad if you want to customize it yourself. Also, the bronze on the D-pad is more gold on the Iine over here, an actual kind of a dark bronze brushed. It looks better on the licensed version. But the Iine goes with this gloss red around the bumper and triggers, which it looks fine, except for the fact that the trigger stops and rear buttons and this toggle in the back are a flat red, which doesn't doesn't go with the gloss red, so I wish they could have kept it cohesive. Also, I don't know what it is about having two Phillips heads right next to each other and then the 3.5mm headphone jack, but this whole thing right here looks like a little smiley face, but it just looks really cheap as well. So interestingly enough, this actually does say Constellation on the left palm grip and then Certification on the right palm grip. Certification? No, there was none obtained for this controller. Constellation? Sure, that's one of the groups in Starfield. Pretty forgettable game. And then this just kind of struck me as interesting. They have the same labeling on the bumpers. It says scan for the left and mode on the right, and you have those exact same labels on the Authentic. The Authentic joint does have a little Easter egg inside the inside of the battery tray cover, which a lot of limited edition Xbox controllers do for all Into the Starfield. Yeah, we were in there for a couple of weeks, and then we left, never came back. And you do have these really nice rubberized grips, which are two-tone. You have this light gray on the outside and this dark gray on the inside. Looks great, feels great. Also, you have these clear triggers, so you can actually see them working, rumbling away when they're, well, vibrating. Looks really cool. Yeah, this is a really good looking gamepad. The game wasn't phenomenal, but all the accessories around them, the controller, the headset, all the Bethesda merch on their website actually looks pretty sick. As for the ergonomics or comfort, I do believe this is a good angle to show you why this is not a very comfortable controller, because it has this boomerang shape, so your middle and ring finger get cocked up at kind of a weird angle. You don't really have a good place to rest your hands on the palm grip, unlike the traditional Xbox One and Series controllers, which do have this flat section and then a pretty steep drop off, which gives you, sure enough, a place for you to naturally rest your hands. Furthermore, this has rubber grips. This controller does not, and all the plastics making contact with your hand feel better on the Authentic joint. This is not a very comfortable controller, but it is serviceable, and the rear buttons, which we'll get to during the rear button section, are absolutely useless, and this is actually almost identical to the controller that I just reviewed, popping up on screen here, a little B-roll from the initial review. This more or less is a reskin or rebranding of that controller. All the components pretty much carry over to that review, but this has a faceplate and some painted components. As for the D-pad or direction buttons, it is not impressive on the Iine, as you have this really weird fitment issue where you can actually see a gap into the, yeah, there you go. And this isn't removable. You can't pop this off or anything, which would give it a little excuse to have that lip in there to get your fingernail underneath there, but this is not a removable, swappable D-pad, and it just looks a little bit cheap, placed on top, snapped on, bolted on. Doesn't really feel like it's part of the controller. It is very quiet, which I do like. However, there's this weird underdome. That's probably not what it's called, but there's this little dome underneath the D-pad, which lets you do swivels and roll-offs, but it feels incredibly sloppy, and I never really felt like I was getting any positive actuations out of it. So if you're somebody that's using a D-pad exclusively for some retro games, this is not the controller to pick up. Face buttons, you can also see some funkified fitment, as these stick way too far from the front shell than they should, and also have a really hollow, tinny, clacky sound when you actuate them. Check this out. In comparison to the Stalkers, which I do think have a little bit less travel, or at least feel like they have far less travel, I do not like how rounded Xbox controller buttons are. I mentioned that during my stock comparison video. However, these cosmetically do look really nice. Size and spacing, don't really have any complaints there. I would give these facer action buttons, look at all that side-to-side player wiggle, I'd give these bad boys about a 4 out of 10. As for the accessory button suite, you have the Xbox home button, which is whited out, and then you have these 3 accessory buttons. Over here, you got these 4 in your home button, which are a little bit more cramped up, a little bit smaller, but they are far enough from the front shell to where you can easily hit them, and they're not in a terrible place. The accessory buttons work, 5 out of 10. As for the thumbsticks or analog sticks, they are Hall effect on the Iine, and they are potentiometer traditional, can get stick drift for you at any time on the Xbox Authentic. Now, this does have anti-friction rings, but they are pretty rough or jagged, which completely defeats the point or purpose of having anti-friction rings. You might as well just not have them, because it doesn't glide along smooth plastic when you're at full lock. But cosmetically, you've got those anti-friction rings in there. The rubber or silicone compound used is actually really grippy and feels really nice. And this is the design that a lot of third-party gamepads have, where it's smooth in the center and then has these lines around the outside, which does provide a decent amount of grip, which is important because these are not removable and swappable. How about KontrolFreek compatibility? White Galaxies for PlayStation 4 and 5 snap on, and you can pinch and twist them, but you would never do this in gameplay using them normally, so these work perfectly. Nintendo Switch are a little bit too tight, is gouging into the rubber a little bit, and then Omnis for Xbox One or Series won't even snap on because they are the smallest in diameter. As for the included universal slipovers, they are pretty good. They do kind of make it domed, so if you want a concaved on the left and a domed on the right, that's kind of how I'm going to be running this bad boy, as you get a little bit more grip with that add-on and a little bit more height as well. These thumbsticks perform good on the other controller, and guess what? They ain't changed because they're the same exact units. You're going to see, whoa,
Ooh, hello. Well, while the resting value is the same at 0.00 across the board, we are seeing 5.6% in the average error as opposed to 0. We were around 0.8, 0.9 on the other modules. And these ones actually have a bit of a weird inner dead zone to where I can't get it to feather. It just jumps from there to there. So it does have a weird inner dead zone baked in, which the other unit did not. No weird outer dead zone though. That's counting for something. These are good, but not great. As I go through this review, I've got to say it is a little bit silly that I'm treating this like a brand new comprehensive review going part by part, considering this so far is identical to the controller I reviewed just earlier this week, except it is Starfield themed, of course. But the bumpers are a little bit different than that controller, a little bit worse, I would say. They do produce a pretty goddamn loud sound for being membrane and not mechanical, although they are very tactile and clicky. So if you're wearing a headset or blaring your surround sound, you're still going to get that tactile click on your finger. But what doesn't feel great is clicking over here, as it takes a lot more resistance. But even actuating it with the meat of your finger just doesn't feel great, as there is no stippling or grip up here. And since this is gloss red, it is going to collect fingerprints and micro scratches like nobody's business. Something about these bumpers just irks me. I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10 right down the middle. As for the triggers, just like the controller I reviewed the other day, this does have the on-offs that are really small and you have to get a fingernail up underneath them, so you're not going to be able to turn them on and off in gameplay. But with it engaged, it does cut out about 85% of your trigger pull. I'd like if it cut out about 90, 95. Some kind of triangles, dots, stippling for grip up here. I'm going to give the triggers a 4 out of 10. The rear buttons or back paddles are virtually identical to the controller I just reviewed from the other day, so yes, you can rebind them on the fly. It also has 21 input macro support, which is pretty sick. I'm not going to do a whole rear button section for this thing, but linked in the description below is the review I keep referencing, because it is pretty much the same damn gamepad, but with some cosmetic tweakage. As for adapter or converter support, just like the EOS gamepad for Tesla, as it is the identical generic gamepad rebranded, it is going to have the same converter support. The Brook Accessories XB2 works on Xbox Series S and X with no restrictions. The XE2 for PlayStation 5 does allow you to navigate the console and play PS4 games. What you're going to encounter on Amazon and a lot of these third-party vendors is going to be the same goddamn controller imported from China for pennies on the dollar from things like Wish, Alibaba, Temu, AliExpress, etc., so on and so forth, and they're rebranded by about 12. No, that's not enough. 30 companies or so under different names. This is one of those clones, which of course means since it has the same board that has the onboard control for things like turbo, macro, disabling and dimming the lights just by holding down a combination of buttons. Wasn't recording. I was just over here spinning like an idiot off camera talking to you. You weren't listening because the camera was not rolling, but we are in Gamepad LA getting our first input lag or delay test, spinning that thumbstick in a circle, but as you can see, we are at 8 millisecond of input lag or delay. It's all indicated right there. 125 hertz stock clock. Now, if I tried to run this in X input test, it would not be recognized. I do need to spoof the PC to thinking that this is an Xbox 360 controller. In order to do that, we are going to launch ReWAS. Here's my Switch Pro controller. If I click on vibrate, I don't know if you can hear that, but it vibrates in my hand. I'm going to click on switch to 360 controller, apply to slot 1. Now on the bottom of my screen, it will say that that profile is activated. Now we can run ourselves X input test. 1,000 samples of them, why don't you? Identical to that other controller is we're getting 8 milliseconds of input lag or delay, but we're seeing those sporadic stutters or sputters in there. Yep, about 8 of them. Pew, 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 pew. Consistency, not great. So I was gearing up to test the wireless input lag or delay with the dongle, as I do if there is one of those stick of gum looking ass things in the box, and it's just flashing lights at me. I'm getting flashbanged over here. This uses the same dongle as the controller that I just reviewed the other day, which was the Tesla EOS gamepad. That controller, I was able to use the dongle, which again, this is the same controller, same dongle. And my quote from testing that dongle was, okay, so the consistency's out the window. Peak speed's also freakishly slow as well. Steer clear of the dongle, by all means, by all costs. Damn, you heard it from the lips of the horse. Well, I guess I'm a horse. Now we're going to try and overclock this controller, and if it is identical to the EOS we just tested, it will not be pulling rate locked to the board, and overclocking will shave about 2 milliseconds off the top, so 6 milliseconds, not 8. Let's get it. Over here in the Lord of Mice overclocking software, we're going to expand this drop down to all. We're going to pull down the panties of this thing, or really expand the box out of it. Xbox 360 controller for Windows. Holy shit, this is already shown as overclocked. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. This is the same exact board, PCB, printed circuit board, as that EOS Tesla gamepad, which I just tested. So it's communicating with my computer as the same controller, meaning I overclocked that controller. So it's already showing that it's overclocked whenever I launch the Lord of Mice overclocking program. Let's test the theory, shall we? Good. Already spoofed with the PC, even though ReWAS isn't running. That's fucking weird. There we go. Yep. And just like with the other controller, I'm seeing a lot more. Wow. Yeah. About 5 millisecond of input lag or delay on a 250 hertz stock clock. So when you do overclock, it does double the speed from 125 to 250 hertz. In essence, halving your input lag or delay from 8 to around 5. I know that's not half. Half would be 4, but we're seeing 5. So I beefed up my antivirus and now I'm ready to visit the Iine website, which the real Iine is International Institute of New England, which everybody knows, but in the controller world, it's going to be Iine official store over here that do not have the proper licensing. That was as clear as day. This is a Zelda. Link's right there. Little Hobnob Goblin right there. Maybe a Pokemon knockoff. Yeah, Pokemon knockoff right here. Splatoon. That's insane. I guess how they get away with this is that it's a Chinese company and they don't have to adhere to the same laws as North American or European companies. So they can get away with a lot of this funk ass shit. And since we can still buy these and have them imported to the States, you can get all these jank ass knockoff gamepads. It's really cool, especially if you're a collector and you like this kind of weird, obscure controllers. Even branded chargers. This is DBZ over here. Let's go to support down here. I like their company creed and code, their mission statement. It's a 2016 company, maining some gaming accessories, providing good products and good services for players. Short, simple, sweet, and to the point. I don't know if I would buy anything from this website. I look like the Chick-fil-A sauce girl right now. I don't know. I probably wouldn't fucking purchase anything from this website. Why does she have a bath towel on her head? Oh shit. Okay, I might be getting that and reviewing that on the channel. It's a drum controller with 2 sticks that stick into the back of it. Compatible with Switch, PlayStation 4. We're still making accessories for a console that's been surpassed for 3.5 years now. Actually, that's not that surprising because PlayStation 2 and 3 accessories were being produced well into the PS4's life cycle, which is whoa, crazy. So a quick little piece of advice to my viewers, the Stallions and Stallionettes. If you see a controller on Amazon, Wish.com, Temu, etc. that has this little boomerang shape right here, these are all the same controller, which are purchased for probably about $3.50 and then rebranded and sold to us for about $35, $40. I was looking for some kind of a warranty support thing in case I have an issue with my troller. No, your warranty did not yield any results. I'm out of here. Okay, that's good news. This has not been taken off market yet. Damn, you can see I bought this piece February 7th and I'm just now getting to reviewing it April 5th. So just the controller is $38 and with the bag or carrying case is $43, which I totally pop for the bag because it comes with the thumbstick caps as well. Interesting. And then if you come down here, it says that the manufacturer is WooTop, not Iine. So Iine is the company that has rebranded this controller, but the one that actually makes the controllers for all of these companies, EOS, Iine, is WooTop over here, which is coming straight out of the depths of China, for sure, for sure. But some of the features of this controller, you do have NFC. It says you have NFC. I was not able to scan a single amiibo with this controller. You do have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. You do have macros. You do have 6-axis motion sensing, which I will say wasn't as accurate and was kind of choppy, stuttery. It didn't recognize my movements as good as a standard licensed Nintendo Switch Pro controller. Auto fire, the stupid name of wording that, but it's turbo function. RGB lighting. Yeah, you have some lights around the thumbstick, which I would recommend just turning off to save battery life. Same thing with the rumble. It comes on pretty strong. You can taper that back to low or medium, save a little bit of battery life. And then large capacity battery. It's not. It's a 600 milliamp hour, which I covered. They talk about the standby time being like 16 hours, but an actual use case scenario, you're going to get about 6 and then have to charge for 3 hours, back up for 6. So what's my opinion on this little guy as I put this bad boy over shoulder, the Authentic John? I think it looks really silly. It looks like a cheap Chinese clone or knockoff, and that's exactly what it is. Having said that, I actually think it's still pretty cool looking, and the fact that this inevitably is going to get taken off market, as probably those Zelda designs and Splatoon and all the other ones that aren't licensed will get taken down. But maybe they won't, because this is a Chinese gamepad and they do not have to adhere to the same consumer electronic regulatory laws as Europe and North America. It's the fucking Wild West over there with consumer electronics. That's why almost the entire world imports their stuff from China. Hopefully you had a good time looking at this controller with me, because I had a blast checking it out and comparing it to the licensed Microsoft joint over here. They both look good. Me personally, I think the Authentic one looks chef kiss. Wish the game was chef kiss. Even with mods, there's still so many things that cannot be fixed with mods. But like I mentioned earlier, there is a Fallout game that can be completely transformed into an absolute beast of a title with mods and backed up with a beastly graphics card to push it all. And there is a video that encompasses that entire experience into a video documentary style, easy to digest video that's coming in the near future. Different than any video I've ever uploaded on this channel, but it's going to really pinch your nipples and twist them off. So you should check it out if you don't have sensitive nips. Drop in the comment section below what you think of the Iine over here, and I will see you Stallions and Stallionettes tomorrow. Peace. If you enjoyed the video, liking it helps it to get seen by more gamers, so this information will reach and assist them as well. Much like the back of the TV, I've got plugs for all of my socials down there in the description below. And your wallet will greatly thank you if you check the description, because there are exclusive discounts on a ton of products, including controllers, KontrolFreeks, keyboards, mouse pads, clothes, and energy drinks. And keep in mind that you, the viewer, keep this channel running. The more Stallions and Stallionettes trotting around the stable, the better, so mollywop that subscribe button like it owes you money, and we'll have the same amount of fun tomorrow.